Chapter 25. Bless your money. If you ever get to London, England, visit Foyles, which is among the oldest bookstore in the city. I have found more gems by browsing along its dusty shelves than in any other bookshop I have visited around the world. Being a dedicated student of self-help literature myself, I generally gravitate to that section in the store. I always look for a little-known work that will offer me a few new insights on the art of living and help me improve the quality of my own life. And in Foyles, I always find one. A few years back, I found a book entitled Bring Out the Magic in Your Mind. It was written almost 30 years ago by a man named Alcoran, who was then known as the finest mental magician in the world. In a chapter entitled The Secret of Wealth, he writes the following: When you send your money out, remember always to bless it. Ask it to bless everybody that it touches, and command it to go out and feed the hungry and clothe the naked. And command it to come back to you a millionfold. Don't pass over this lightly, I am serious. Over the next few days, why not follow Al Quran's advice and see what happens? When you pay for your groceries, silently bless all those who have helped bring this food to you, the farmers who have grown it, the delivery people who have carried it, and the store clerks who have stocked it. If you are writing a check for your children's education, why not give silent appreciation to all the teachers who are spending their days shaping the minds of your kids, and to all the others who make their work possible? When you pull out a few bills to buy that magazine off the rack in a convenience store, bless the person who is toiling away behind the counter and hope the money adds value to the quality of his or her life. As that timeless truth says, the hand that gives is the hand that gathers. Chapter 26. Focus on the Urdi. A while ago, a FedEx package arrived at my office. Inside was an envelope with a gold seal placed on the fold and my name carefully written on the front. I quickly opened it and began to read the letter within. It was from the CEO of major corporation who had picked up my book Leadership Wisdom from the monk who sold his Ferrari at an airport while on his way to a business meeting in Europe. He said he was a lifelong student of leadership and was intrigued by the title, which had brought a smile to his face. This executive had been under tremendous pressure as a result of the overwhelming demands placed on him and was hoping to learn some ways to improve his leadership effectiveness so that he could spend more time on the things that really mattered, both in his business life and his personal world. In his letter he wrote, As I read your story about this man whose life had become too complex and out of control, I began to connect with a part of myself that I had not connected with for many years. I began to think about the people in my organization who looked to me for guidance and inspiration. I began to think about my wife who had been begging me to take a vacation for the past 5 years. And I thought about my 3 children who had watched their father spend the finest years of their youth climbing the imaginary ladder of success. I consider myself a strong person, but as I continued to read your book, I began to sob quietly at first and then uncontrollably, so much so that the flight attendant rushed over and politely asked if everything was all right. The CEO continued, That moment was a wake-up call for me, an experience I will carry with me until the day that I die. I knew that I had to make some serious changes in the way that I was leading and in the way that I was living. So, on that flight, sitting 35,000 feet above the world below, I promised myself that I would commit myself to eliminating the multitude of distractions in my life and concentrate on only the fundamentals, those few activities that really had the power to make a difference in the way I worked and lived. I promised to stop reading 6 newspapers a day, handling every piece of mail that appeared in my in-basket and accepting every dinner invitation that came my way. I even had the title of your chapter on personal effectiveness, which is aptly called Focus on the Worthy, made into a plaque that I keep on my desk to remind me that the person who tries to do everything ultimately achieves nothing. I cannot tell you how much better my life has become since I began to live by this simple philosophy. Thank you. Time is your most precious commodity, and yet most of us live or lives as if we have all the time in the world. The real secret to getting control of your life is to restore a sense of focus in your days. The real secret to getting things done is knowing what things need to be left undone. Once you start spending the hours of your days only on those high leverage activities and priorities that will advance your life's mission and legacy, everything will change. Many of history's greatest thinkers have arrived at the same conclusion. The sage Confucius put it this way: the person who chases two rabbits catches neither, while the Roman philosopher Marcus Aurelius said, let thin occupations be few if thou wouldest lead a tranquil life. Management guru Peter Drucker made the point of wisdom in yet another way when he wrote, there is nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. Chapter 27. Write thank you notes. The things that are easy to do are also the things that are easy not to do. The more the pace of our lives speeds up, the greater the impact the simple gestures of life will have on those most deserving of them. And near the very top of my list of simple gestures that have profound consequences is the lost art of writing thank you notes. Everyone loves getting mail. It's a fact of human nature. We all have a deep-seated need to feel important. I truly love receiving letters from people who have read my books and used the lessons within them to make positive changes in their lives. Few things excite me as much as receiving a bag full of mail from men and women who have attended one of my seminars and seen their careers take off and their personal lives improve. And knowing how much joy I feel when I receive mail from others, I try my best to respond to every letter that comes across my desk with a thank you note of my own. Even in the case of the people I deal with on a daily basis, executives calling to book me as a speaking engagement, people who attend my personal coaching programs, members of the media requesting an interview, and business people calling me with new opportunities. I try to follow up on every encounter with a sincerely written thank you note. Sure, it takes time. Sure, there might be pressing things on my agenda, but few acts have the power to build and cement relationships like a heartfelt letter of thanks. It shows you care and that you are considerate and human. So this week, go out and buy a package of the blank thank you cards that are now available in bulk at your local office supply warehouse and start writing. You and all the people that you deal with will be glad you did. Chapter 28. Always carry a book with you. According to US News and World Report, over the course of your lifetime, you will spend 8 months opening junk mail, 2 years unsuccessfully returning phone calls, and 5 years standing in a line. Given this startling fact, one of the simplest yet smartest time management strategies you can follow is to never go anywhere without a book under your arm. while others waiting in line are complaining. You will be growing and feeding your mind a rich diet of ideas found in great books. So long as you live, keep learning how to live, noted the Roman philosopher Seneca. Yet most people never read more than a handful of books after they complete their formal schooling. In these times of rapid change, ideas are the commodity of success. All it takes is one idea from the right book to reshape your character or to transform your relationships or to revolutionize your life. Good book can change the way you live, as the philosopher Henry David Thoreau observed in Walden. There are probably words addressed to our condition exactly, which, if we could really hear and understand, would be more salutary than the morning or the spring to our lives, and possibly put a new aspects on the face of things for us. How many a man has dated a new era of his life from the reading of a book? The book exists for us, perchance, which will explain our miracles and reveal new ones. How high you will rise in your life will be determined not by how hard you work, but by how well you think. As I say in my leadership speeches, the greatest leaders in this new economy will be the greatest thinkers, and the person you will be 5 years from now will come down to primary influences, the people you associate with and the books you read. I often joke with my seminar audience that I play Cinderella tennis. I try hard, but I never quite make it to the ball. Yet when I play tennis with someone better than I am, something almost magical happens to my game. I make shots that I have never made before, gracefully floating through the air with an ease that would make even the best player blush. Reading good books creates much the same phenomenon. When you expose your mind to the thoughts of the greatest people who have walked this planet before you, your game improves. The depth of your thinking expands and you rise to a whole new level of wisdom. Deep reading allows you to connect with the world's most creative, intelligent, and inspiring people. 24 hours a day, Aristotle, Emerson, Seneca, Gandhi, Thoreau, Brandeis, and many of the wisest women and men who grace our planet today are just waiting to share their knowledge with you through their books. Why would not you seize such an opportunity as often as you could? If you have not read today, you have not really lived today. And knowing how to read but failing to do so puts you in exactly the same position as the person who cannot read but wants to.